Alright, moving on vlog. I'm doing this one super quick because I was babysitting, so it's actually almost midnight right now, so I was like rushing home to do this. And and so I'm trying to get to it real quick to hopefully finish up, talk about it enough, talk about my topic enough, and upload it before midnight. So that technically I did do it, every day. So topic today is 666 Satan, which is an older manga, shonen manga that was created by Seishi Kishimoto, who is the brother of Masashi Kishimoto, who made Naruto. So the manga is pretty basic shonen. You have your main character, and he has something special about him, but he's like the reckless character who doesn't really have a path in life because he's a young kid and he's actually an orphan. A lot like Naruto, and they make references to that, not in the story, but as far as how they look, because the main character Gio Freed, he actually looks just like Naruto from certain sides, because his hair is like black and white, it's split in half, and from like the angle where his hair is white, from that side he'll look like Naruto. And there's one scene where they drew him, or where he drew him, and he looked exactly like Naruto, and they mentioned like, oh, he looks just like this kid I know. And just in other panels where they don't reference it, he looks exactly like Naruto when he was really young in like the flashback scenes from Naruto. So it starts off pretty simple with him hooking up with this girl. She's looking for her father, who's like an archaeologist, I believe. It was a long time ago when I read this, so I can't remember who exactly was what. But she's looking for her dad, and he's basically a specialist on what are called O parts. And if you're looking it up in English, it's called O parts hunter because 666 Satan, slightly demonic essence. So they kind of changed the title, but they work together, and they fight random people. Come across other people who end up becoming main characters and stuff. And I believe it was in like the first couple of chapters they fight this guy who uses a gun, and basically certain people can use O parts and certain people can't, and every single O part has a specific use. It could be like the guy's gun was, if I remember it, was sort of like a water type gun, and he could like basically shoot water bullets, and he could hit people like regular bullets, or he could use it and like shoot a bullet, and it would basically expand into like a giant bubble of water and trap someone inside and kill him. And Geo, he had like a giant boomerang in the beginning, and it was basically like indestructible. But later on, he gets like this really cool like tri blade type weapon that he like unfolds, and it's basically I think the boomerang was indestructible, but it was like a wind element type weapon. Like pretty much everything is an elemental weapon. It's either like any element, fire, water, something like could like shoot fire, anything like that, thunder, just all elements. And so his was wind, and he had the boomerang originally, and then he upgraded pretty much to this triple bladed weapon. And by the end, he pretty much had like a sort of spiritual type boomerang weapon, which was invisible to anyone who had a good soul, but for all enemies, they could see it, and it would be like a giant boomerang that could take up like any amount of space. It was like the worse the person, the larger the boomerang. So that was interesting. I didn't really like how it looked personally because I'm weird about symmetry and stuff, and it just looked weird, and it looked like it had a bunch of eyes on it. But it was really cool when he like, even when he didn't have it, it was just like a cool little like bracelet on his arm. But it starts off pretty simple. He's just going around. He's an orphan. He meets up with her and they fight, or they go through and they end up fighting people because certain people know about him, and as with it being called 666 Satan, he does have basically an inner demon, which is flat out the devil himself. And so he's fighting with people, and it's kind of like in Naruto, except a lot worse because it's the devil and not just an angry, fox. The devil will come out and he'll basically like take over Gio's body and kill people. or fight people, because generally he'll probably stop before he actually kills anyone. He'll just beat them up really bad, and then Gio will be able to like take control and stuff. But it's a great manga that unfortunately doesn't have an anime, and it probably never will unless someone who like really loves the anime gets like a ton of money and decides I want to pay a company to make it into an anime. Because it's, if you think about how old Naruto is, it came out around the same time, so you'd have to consider the fact that it's that old and it just never got an anime. And I'm not really sure why. I guess it wasn't insanely popular, but personally, it was my favorite manga. And then um, then I got into Soul Eater, and that became my favorite. But it's a really great manga. It has great action. The story is really good. I really enjoyed that, because even though it's a classic shonen manga where it's like random tournament and stuff, it was kind of like it had a point. Just like in Naruto, even though they had the Chunin exam and it was a tournament, it was like you need this to be a higher level ninja. So it's not just tournament like in Dragon Ball Z when they were fighting Cell and he's like sucking up people through his tailpipe or whatever, and people were just like, yeah, let's fight him one on one. Like for Goku it made sense, and Vegeta, it was just like he always wants to prove how strong he is. But for everyone else it was like, let's just follow these two and what their example is. And personally I just thought, like most people probably thought, that it was just kind of dumb. It didn't make any sense why this guy who's like, I'm gonna destroy the planet, gets to have a little tournament where everyone's just like, we'll fight you one on one even though you're killing everybody pretty much. But they have a cool tournament, and I think one of the sweetest things about the tournament, it's a really good portion of the story, because a lot of things get unveiled at that part. But the fights themselves are really cool, because the area they fight in, it's like this giant, like this sky area, and when they're in the fights they're in basically like this little bubble where there's like no gravity, and you basically have to control yourself. Well, there's pretty much no gravity, except you can control how you move and things like that. So you get in excuse me. So you get in, and the characters are pretty much just floating around, and they have to figure out how to allocate themselves to this little space and figure out how to defeat their enemy with their element. And like I said, some of the characters that they meet, it's the type of story where the characters are pretty much all neutral outside of like certain few people, but most of the other ones are just like general people. Like, I want to be powerful, just like the main character might want to be powerful, and they aren't exactly bad guys. They're just normal people who are in the way, just natural tournament stuff. They just all meet up in this area, and they're like the bad guys, then the good guys, and then a large chunk of people who are just like in the story, but they're neutral, but they do become main parts of the story later on. And it has like some pretty great twists in it towards the end too. Like some stuff gets revealed about certain characters who are really cool. And just a random thing, like one character, he looks a lot like Jiraiya, except you can't see his face. He's a pretty cool character. And a lot of the other characters are really cool too. Like pretty much everyone in the story is a pretty good character for whoever they are. Like if it's the main character, he's starts off as like the reckless kid, but he does grow up. And actually when he's like a teenager, because it doesn't give a specific timeline, but when he's older, he's pretty like quiet and like laid back compared to how he was when he was younger, because there's like a huge time skip. And he gets like a whole new look and everything, and it's a great story that ends on a note that you probably wouldn't expect. That's one of the parts that I really loved about it, was the way it ended. It wasn't just like a happy-go-lucky ending, and it wasn't exactly bad either. It's just the type of ending that it's one of the endings that makes you think, and that's what I enjoyed the most about it. I have to make sure check my time. But you should really check it out. It is a fantastic manga, and like I said, I wish it had an anime so bad. If I had to pick like anything that I've read that I knew didn't have an anime yet, it would definitely be 666 Satan, because it had a story. And of course, if it was an anime, it would probably end up having fillers. But for the story, it was nothing seemed useless. Everything was like a good quick chunk of the past was to show something that you had no idea about. It was like, maybe someone's parents were like, passively mentioned, and it was like, yeah, left home, and then it'll be like, well, this is why I left home. They just mention it, and they might have like a certain expression. You're like, obviously something happened, but you might not get that until a few volumes later or something, and it'll be a huge chunk that somehow relates to this random new person you just saw, but everyone's kind of connected in some crazy way that really brings the whole story together at the end when they're like fighting the main person. And then even at the end, not everyone's together. It's the type of big fight where you have like this group here, and then this group is stopping something else that could destroy the world. So it's like one main bad enemy is like split up into these different little factions that could, if this fails, this will still screw up the planet. And then so all the good guys are kind of split up too, and like the neutral characters, I guess, are like basically fighting like, hey, I don't want to die either. So people just team up and they fight in the end to, do what they need to do. And it's a great manga. It has great action. The comedy's really good too. And like I said, the story never seemed to slow to me. I guess the slowest part is the beginning, like any story would be. But after that, it kind of seems to just like shoot through. And I was like, I was interested in pretty much every single portion, outside of like a few small chunks where basically they're introducing more main characters, and so you get their stories. And that's about it. So, you should really check it out if you're interested in action manga that doesn't, it follows the principles but not 100% for basic shonen manga. It has the typical stuff, but it works it around in its own way that makes it amazing in my opinion. And the elemental attacks and all the weapons and stuff are also really cool. Like certain characters would be like really laid back and have like powers that you could think, how would I use that power? And then you see how they use it, and it's completely different than what you would probably think of. Stuff like that. So it's a great manga to check out for pretty much everything that you want in a manga. It has action, comedy, tons of drama, but not in the sappy type of way where it's like they're talking so much now I'm bored and I just want more action. It's always the perfect balance to me. Like you get a good chunk of action, you might get like here's the fight and then here's the dramatic scene like on the side every other page or something like that, and it always balances out perfectly to me. So 666 Satan or Opart's Hunter, check it out. I highly suggest that you read it, at least the first volume or something, or look up reviews of it or something like that. But I'm telling you personally, I think it's one of the best manga out there that unfortunately just hasn't gotten an anime. That I hope it does in the future, but so far it hasn't. Comment, rate, subscribe if you like. You can tell me what manga is like your personal favorite that doesn't have an anime, or just your personal favorite in general. Like I said, mine is Soul Eater, that has a manga, has an anime, it's super popular. Just let me know and let other people know. Thanks for watching.